With us right now, Phil Whitebloom. Phil, you are a sales coach and you're the founder and president of Been There Consulting Services. Your website is benttherecs.com. Phil, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I assume been there has to do with kind of a been there, done that.
Yes, and it really is. I have, even though I haven't worked for many companies in my career of over 40 years, I've done an awful lot of things and touched an awful lot of applications. So that's where it came from.
Why, particularly when we think about sales and growth and attracting revenue, client acquisition, why is that so critical compared to, let's say there's a founder that's listening to us and maybe he and another person or she and another person, they've just got all of this founder magic and they're like, no, we've got great growth and excitement and a lot of good things are going. Why should we slow down and kind of focus on the fundamentals of, good best practices for all things kind of sales and growth?
That could be the best question. Might as well start out with the best one. So I always tell people that Field of Dreams is a movie. It's not real life. And what I mean by that is build it and they will come. I've worked with an awful lot of very intelligent people, very successful people who have done all the right things to open their business, except they gave no thought on how they're going to sell their products and services, like it was just going to happen. And they find that that doesn't happen. Or they don't know how to set up a sales organization and how to set compensation plans and how to motivate, because that's not where they come from. They could be a brilliant CFO and they became CEO and they come from an engineering background and they had a great product and great software and everything else that they want to sell. But, so they get everything and all their friends come on board and everything else, but they need to go out and sell. So without sales, nothing else is really important.
All right. So we think about learning best practices for sales and, maybe we want to get some individual attention on that. Phil, I'll just share from my background and experience, not all sales training and coaching is equally efficient and correct and best for our use case. Do you mind maybe addressing personalization, why that's so important?
Yes. In fact, that's exactly why I emphasize that I'm a sales coach and not a sales trainer. So I always tell everybody there's many, many great sales trainers out there and plenty of great sales training programs. You get them online or you get them in person. As a coach, though, I work with people where they are now and businesses where they are now because they're in business and they need results immediately. So coaching is focused on what's going on with them, where are their priorities, what do they need immediately, and it builds for the future. So in my case, training comes with coaching, but coaching, I'm saying my coaching comes with training. Sorry about that. Coaching comes with training, but training very rarely comes with coaching. So a great example is just recently, I was working with somebody just over the last 6 weeks. And what happened there is she had a $5,000 opportunity. She was talking to me about it and working with her in one day, it turned into a $150,000 sale. Wow. And then just this morning, right before this interview today with you, she announced that her sales got so big so fast, she got promoted to vice president in her financial institution.
Oh my goodness.
So that was in 6 weeks. I love to tell everybody that results happen that quickly, but with her, it did. It was awesome. It is awesome.
I suspect that there is maybe a lot of sales ideas that may have worked well in the past. I'd say particularly around maybe some of the more, I don't want to say manipulative, but manipulative practices, in my experience, probably aren't as appropriate today. Are there any practices that you see still being taught or talked about or practiced in sales today that if you were to say, please stop doing XYZ, what's XYZ?
So XYZ would be stop making assumptions that the way things were done in the past don't work today. You have to work closely with social media and other ways to get the word out there. But what's really important is that personal conversation, being able to inquire. You have to be able to ask questions. So how you get in front of people is harder than it used to be, especially if anybody was around before 9/11. After 9/11, it changed the world and how you could get into companies, into businesses. I have a big background in selling to the government, and that all changed immediately. So then you have the advent of social media. And the worst part is you have caller ID. So people look, if they don't recognize the name or there's no name at all, they're not picking up the phone. So it's not really so much of what you don't do now. It's what new things you have to do in order to be successful. And you have to be able to work all these methods. And it used to be you would do things one way and you would approach your customers in one methodology or another. But these days you have to do it all in parallel. It is not a linear thing. So let me explain. What I mean by that is you send an email, you leave a voicemail. Remember, if you call somebody, you don't leave a voicemail, you never made the call. So you leave a voicemail, you send the email, you could send a text if you have their number, and then you try and get a personal appointment. And when you do all these things, it really improves the odds that you're going to connect with that person one way or another. But if you do them one at a time, you could miss on every one of them. So it's kind of a reverse to what your question was. It's not so much about what you don't do, what you used to do, because those fundamentals are still really strong, but you have to modernize yourself and your approach by the way things are done today.
Yeah, completely agree. Phil, share just a bit about how do you coach your clients, or what does that look like?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So what I do is when I meet somebody, just have a very brief conversation just to see what's on their mind and why they're actually interested in talking with me. The next step then is to go in and do what's called I call a discovery call. It's just a lot of questions asking them, once again, why am I here? What are your challenges? What are you trying to approach? But what's really important is, where are your goals? Why? It's that why, right, Josh? I've heard other people on your show talk about the whys. And, why is this important to them? What are they ultimately trying to get at? There's a reason why they want to grow their sales. What is that reason? And that's what we work for. So it's not really just to make this next sale, but it's to get all the way up there. So what I do is, once I have that information, then I take that information, I say, where are your challenges? What do you believe your situation is? And I have to tell you that the majority of the time people say, my people are not good closers, or I'm not a good closer. And what I learned by being in there is, it's not that they're good closers, it's that their prospects were not ready to be closed.
Right.
Either they haven't done the right things, they haven't handled the objections, they haven't answered the questions correctly, or they haven't asked the right questions. So when they go to ask for an order, if they do get around to asking for the order, it comes back negative because they haven't addressed what the real reasons are that they're in the room and what really needs to be accomplished. And it doesn't always have to be because of competition. It could just be because they just missed. And that happens an awful lot.
Yeah. It's I think the example of the sell me this pencil, which you've seen a million times.
Right. Yep.
And, an amateur salesperson, especially back in the day, would just start getting right into features and benefits and not ask questions. Whereas, a better way is in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I think for me, when I think about sales, and I don't know that I'm necessarily perfect at this, but to me, it would be offensive to just start pushing or promoting something because I don't know what they want. I'm just here to be helpful. And as a sales professional, I'm okay with whatever the outcome is, right? I don't know if maybe you would kind of tweak this a little bit, but I am okay with just providing the greatest amount of value. If it means that they get this pencil, awesome. I'm here to help them with that. And I'm here to help them discover if this pencil will help them solve some of their unmet needs right now or some of their pain points in life. But how would you maybe tweak that, or how would you frame what we were just what I was just meandering and rambling about?
No, but it's a very traditional
example
that you gave, and it's great because it always applies. And I do a presentation and talk about this a lot, that I call it, there's no such thing as a canned presentation. So if you want to call a PowerPoint presentation the PowerPoint deck, I tell everybody, just because you have the slide in the deck doesn't mean you have to present it. If it's irrelevant to the needs and the wants of your prospect, why would you show that? All it could do is undo any good that you've done or prevent things going on, because these people are going, this person's not connected. It comes back, Josh, to asking the questions first, understanding what's going on. And you should be asking questions all the way through the entire process to make sure you've got it correctly and everything else. So take your pencil example. If you just start spitting out at somebody, I call it throwing up your pitch at them, it just exactly as you described, right? But if you go in there and you say, hey, I know you're interested in a pencil. Why? What are you going to do with that pencil? There's lots of pencils out there, but what are you looking for that you haven't found in the pencils you've been looking at? And then I tell people, shut up and listen. And so why do I say shut up? Because if I say, then be quiet and listen, they get so excited when the prospect or the customer says something, they have to jump right in when they may not have the whole story. But when they hear Phil in their head saying, shut up and listen, no matter how excited you are, for me, I say, put your seatbelt on, Phil, stay in your chair and hold your enthusiasm till you have the rest of the story. So how did I do in answering your question there, Josh?
I love that. And I think what a great to-do item for our friend that's listening right now. Go get a sticky note, go grab a Sharpie, and write these words on that sticky note. Shut up and listen, Phil.
Right.
Go stick that right in front of your Zoom camera or wherever you need to see it every single day.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, Phil. And I think like that principle that you just shared right there, the reason that I probably talk way more than I should be, if I'm critiquing my own ability, it's not because I'm even trying to make the sale. I'm just trying to be helpful. And when someone says something and I go, oh boy, I could talk for about 20 minutes on that topic. Like that's kind of what, and I would honestly say the helpful part or the helper part of my brain wants to do, but that again is maybe not necessarily the best thing that I should be doing if I'm truly advocating for the positive outcomes or success of the person I'm chatting with in that time.
So Josh, what you're talking about though is when you're sincerely enthusiastic and you're sincerely curious and you sincerely want to help, that comes out. So this is what it's all about. I mean, it's not about making the sale. We all want to make a sale. That's why we're there. They know why we're there. Do we know why we're there? They know why we're there. But when you're there really to help them, like you were just describing and getting excited about it, they appreciate that. So, one of the things that I do as a coach is there's many people out there that'll tell you why you do things wrong, and they'll point out all the things that aren't right and how you could have done a better interview, Phil, and this and that and everything else. But I work completely the opposite. I like building off people's strengths and saying, you don't have to be Josh. You don't have to be Phil. You be you, but take the best of what everybody else is offering there, but be the best yourself. Because when you've got that and you're really interested in them, they really appreciate it. And I had some customers, Josh, for more than 30 years, regardless of where I was at. Even if I didn't have something, they always appreciated when I said, I saw this other thing and I think it's going to be great for you. You should try it out or get an appointment with somebody, or I can arrange that for you. And I can't tell you how often, because even in business, that's not government, they're mission oriented. There's something that they need to accomplish. And if you could help them to accomplish this easier, faster, less expensive, and reliably, you have a friend for life.
I have a theory, and I'm not going to share my theory, but let me share this premise, and I'd love your take on this. I think I've experienced this in life, and I definitely, in the work that we do with our clients, have encountered this, which we try to get them to be very aware of this. When I ask them, where have your best clients come from? Oh, just, chatting organically, and we were friends first, and then we discovered that, there was an opportunity for us to work together. And, I said, well, how hard was that for you to sell them? I'm like, well, I didn't even feel like I was selling, and it just worked out that way. And I thought, that's interesting, especially when they're reporting that in a more formal sales environment, they might say things like they're getting in their head too much, or, there's just, it's harder that way. And I don't know if my experience is even something that's known out there. Do you get what I'm talking about?
I do. Yeah. And I have to tell you that it's really amazing when people don't talk about themselves. So when you have the prospect or the client talking about what they need and they're talking about this, something, you're listening and you're asking questions, I could give you just an example from my own personal experience. So here I am talking about myself, right? But so, but so, um, just recently, just before we came on today, I was with somebody and I'm asking these questions and we're talking and I'm learning about them and what they want to do and asking all the right questions and they're fully engaged. And then I stop and they say, "What's next?" I say, "Well, I was going to ask you what's next. What's the next step for you?" And they say, "Well, how do we work together?" This has happened in the last 3 people I've spoken with, and I'm coaching others on how to do this. It's always important about asking for the order, but you could ask for the order without ever doing it. If you were fully engaged, if you are fully engaged, and you're really talking to them, and then you pause and they're looking at you because they want more, well, what do you want? And I had a person recently say, "Well, when do we start? How do we get going?" I didn't have to ask for the question. And then because I was coaching a salesperson who wanted me to coach, they said, the person said, looked at me and I said, "I want you to be able to do this. Why do you want to hire me? What do you know about me?" They said, "Well, we know you're a coach and you were referred by somebody else, so we figured you're pretty good." "Yeah, but what do you know about me? How do you know my qualifications? How do you know this? How do you know that?" "You don't know anything about me, but you're ready to hire me and pay me good money and money that, which will come back many, many times over for you." And that's what you need to be able to do. You need to be able to give such confidence, and you do that by being totally focused on them. People will ask you for your qualifications and everything else, but they know by what you do, if you understand your product and you understand your service and you understand what they need, you could do a match. And I have to tell you, you really need to understand your competitors' products because
Yeah.
it's not about bashing your competitor. Everybody knows that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
And so what it's important though is that will help you to know how your product will do better than anybody else's by
Yes.
knowing what theirs does. So when you're talking to them, you say, "By the way, if you do this with our product, it's going to improve your process by 40% because I have this document here that supports that information." And you know that anybody that comes in behind you with theirs, they're not going to be able to say the same thing. And the last
Yeah.
thing, Josh, is I throw out to you here is ask your prospect what you like, what that prospect like best about what you just offered and what you just said, and then shut up and really shut up. Because when they start talking about what they like, you know who heard it, Josh? They heard it. And when they
Yes.
hear themselves saying positive things, they remember. If you had them saying negative things, they're going to remember that too. And that's what they're going to remember later on. Because at the end of the day, they only remember what they said, what they liked, and maybe about that one specific thing and whether you did a good job or not. Those are the things that
Mm.
they're going to remember. All that other stuff is noise. And so it's really important to ask, what did you like?
Phil, your website is benttherecs.com. When I hover over what we do, you do sales coaching, sales training, consulting, workshops, motivational speaking, and strategic partnerships. But I really want to be on the nose for someone that's listening to our conversation. You're listening for a particular reason. You're interested in this topic and you're wondering perhaps if there might be some areas to improve. For that person, Phil, what would you recommend they do from this point?
They could go right to that website you said and drop me a note in the contact us. And then I will be happy to get in touch with them. Leave me your contact information in there. I'll call you back, drop you an email, and we'll have a conversation. And then I'll learn about what their needs are. And as you saw, it said in their strategic partnerships, if it's something that I can't do, I'm not going to force it. I've niched myself into sales coaching specifically. Other coaches are my power partners and they're there to help others. And that's how I get brought into so many opportunities is by other coaches. Say, "Hey, Phil, they need your services." And I bring that back to others. It's all about helping that prospect. So I'd never walk away from anybody. I just may not be the person that's helping them, but I will get them connected.
Yeah, love that. Phil Whitebloom, again, sales consultant coach, been there, done that in terms of your experience. Your website, one last time, benttherecs.com. Also, some great resources on the website. Your blog is great. And as well, you've done a lot of podcasting and you've even done your own episodes, and that's called the Been There podcast.
And they're sold
Which
that, yeah.
Yeah, been there, sold that. So to our friend that's listening, if you're in your podcast app already and you want to listen, just again, search for the words, been there, sold that. Phil Whitebloom, it's been great having you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you, Josh. I really appreciate the invitation.